Hello, this is Spicy Dungeoneer, and I'm going to be talking to you today about Kineon War. That's the new campaign, or a campaign that I have played before, back in the days of 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons, but that I'm going to bring into the 1 D&D universe now and upgrade everything. And I'll be doing that with all of my campaigns, including the Devil's Dice and things like that. Devil's Dice was 5th edition, but 1 D&D is a little bit different. And no doubt there'll be a lot of 1 D&D creators doing the same thing, because we've got basically the old rules and are sort of half been changed, so there will be some things that need to be updated. And who knows, in 5 to 10 years we might even get a 6th edition, or probably some sort of digital rules. So who knows what's going to happen with Hasbro and what they plan to do. But don't get too bogged down in that, because we're going to be looking at this new world. It's based on Norse mythology, but it has a fantastic element, so that, of course, it's accessible to all sorts of people. There's not only is it sort of that Germanic, Anglo-Saxon, Scandinavian sort of Norse world, but it's also their interactions with the Celts, both the P Celts and the Q Celts, the Slavic cultures and the Finnish cultures and the Central Asians like the Go Turks and things like that, including the Middle East and Turkey and the Byzantine Empire and the Romans and things like that. So it's not just about the Norse. It is inspired by Norse mythology, such as Beowulf and the Ring Saga, the stories of Sigurd, the prose and poetic Edda, and all of the Aesir and Vanir from those mythologies. So in terms of the gods and goddesses of the Aesir and Vanir, they're there. There is a option to play as a celestial Aesir or Vanir, or at least from that realm. In the D&D world, that is called Isgard. I think that's how you say it, where they sort of made it a generic world, but we'll be going back to Asgard and Vanaheim. And you can start off as a Valkyrie, or some kind of celestial warrior. Doesn't have to be a warrior, it could be a wizard and all sorts of things as well. And this option is interesting because it protects you a little bit from death, because if you're adventuring in Midgard, which is the prime material plane, you'll be able to live again if you get killed, because you'll come into the new world of Asgard. What I mean by that is that you'll remanifest in the other world, because you can only be killed if you get killed in Asgard. That's only an option, though. You can opt out of that and just play any creature or species from a world that's in the prime material plane and play Dungeons and Dragons normally. I covered species in the last video, but just so that you are aware, the dwarves are slightly different, giants are slightly different, dragons will be slightly different. There are half-dwarfs. Elves are also different, and it's more based on the Norse mythology. I need to think about that a little bit, though, because modern D&D doesn't seem to like the idea of anybody having a penalty to anything ever, including creatures that live in darkness having a penalty when they are in the sunlight. I'm not sure I really agree with that, but I do want to have this game to be fun for all. Perhaps it could be an optional thing for people to look into. But, you can be a half dwarf or a half giant, which I guess, would allow you to play a Goliath or a half ogre or something like that. And I'll do actual videos discussing these species in terms of their statistics later. We'll be digging into the 1D&D species as well in future videos. So that's something to look forward to. The idea of alignment will also be a bit different. During this campaign, I wanted to get away from this good versus evil, angels versus devils and demons sort of view of the world, black and white, and that I like the idea in Conan RPG about having codes and alliances. So, for example, if you're a Vanir, you might be aligned to the Vanir, and that would imply that you have certain alliances and, at least on a surface level, agree with certain codes and things like that. Likewise, if you're allied to the Azir, that would imply that you agree with most of those principles or whatever. So rather than having an alignment where if you're good, you hate everything evil, and if you're evil, you hate everything good, there would be more complex relationships and codes of honor and codes of conduct, and whether you agreed with them or not. I liked how Conan RPG had like the barbarian code, or a code of honor for knights and things like that. And I think that is interesting to explore. There's other classes you can be as well. For example, a soothsayer, which would be more into divination. But I think that spellcasters need to be fixed up a little bit in terms of the soothsayer has access to both cleric and arcane spells. And there were all sorts of other things that I ended up creating, such as the Rune Warrior class. There was a lot of stuff on rune magic and rune magic spells. I wanted to have a look at magic more. I don't want you to think, though, that you have to be, a Viking, because that is not part. It's more than that. Like in the adventure, you travel around. In some ways, it's almost like a planescape or a spelljammer, because you are traveling around to different worlds and adventuring. So it's got that sort of like seafaring, but also in space. So I think that's interesting. So in my campaigns, people encountered like lizard folk and other kinds of aliens and things like that. I totally reinvented the kobold for this for one adventure. I basically included some traditional monsters, which from other mythologies, like the Greek satyr and things like that. So it was an interesting adventure into that. We went into the Beastlands. There was a witch class as well, and I invented some magical items that were unique, such as the bag of runes and various swords and weapons that were interesting. And so I hope that you will enjoy that aspect as I release this over time. Some more things to think about was that the dragons were a little bit different. I think I sort of am trying to get away from this idea that you can know a monster just, oh, it's a red dragon. I know that because I've read the monster manual. I get it that some people actually like that part of the game, that metagaming side of it, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I think there is something interesting when you encounter a magical monster and all of a sudden you have to discover a little bit about it. I think D&D could do a better job of actually giving the players tools to work that out, a little bit like the Battle Master's skills. Like the Battle Master can look at a creature as it's fighting and work out ways that it might have weaknesses and strengths. I think that needs to be more in the game, that perhaps the wizard could cast spells or to know things, or maybe like in the morning the wizard could cast a spell and they might just get the information like, oh, fire will be very useful today or something like that, and that might give them a hint. I know that's a bit more work for the DM, but I think it's interesting and has the potential to make everything sort of like more mysterious. In terms of the worlds, I won't be using the same worlds that D&D uses. I prefer the Norse ones, although I'll add my own twist to it. It's always going to have my own twist to it. And I get like Alfheim. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. There's plenty more to discuss, and I'll do some more videos in the future about that. But bye for now.